Okay, so now we're going to do some Quilt-as-you-go. So what I've started off with here is I've got some batting or wadding. It's not very thick. This stuff already has quilt lines in it. It's actually for lining a coat, but it's what I have to hand. That's handy. So I fussy cut. Fussy cut is when you get fussy about where you're going to cut. So I carefully chose this butterfly and I cut it out, and I'm going to do this on the diamond with some stripes and some triangles. It'll be very nice, and then I will ultimately put some binding around the edge, which will be another video. So we have our batting to, this is basically going to be a little mat for the middle of the table or hang on the wall or something. It's going to be something pretty. So I went through my stash and I found some fabrics. So there's this green that matches, so I'm going to do green here. Then I have some white strips there, and then I'm going to do corners of these, and then I will bind it in a different color. And for the back of my, because we always have to do our quilt sandwich for quilting, for the back, oh black, I have some white fabric. So that is our sandwich. We have our backing fabric, our batting, and our top, which we're going to quilt as we, instead of making the top and then laying it down and quilting it, we're going to make the top at the same time as quilting, hence quilt as you go. Now I recommend for any kind of straight line quilting, cutting or sewing, not just me, loads of people recommend this is called a walking foot. They're not particularly cheap, but they're not particularly expensive either in the grand scheme of things. So as equipment goes, so this has got teeth here, just like the teeth on your machine. These have got teeth, so when your foot goes down, that's why you have this little box sheen here for all the mechanisms. The teeth pull from the top as well as the teeth of the machine pulling from the bottom, so the sandwich is gripped and pulled through evenly, as opposed to if you don't have it and you've only got the bottom pulling, then it can be pulled through and they all separate. So we don't want that. So it's very good for doing thick sewing or anything like or for kind of layers, anything where you need to grip the upper fabric. That can be good for kind of really silky stuff as well. So I'm just going to put it on here. You'll see I didn't just unclip the foot, I unscrewed the entire apparatus and put this on. So this is one of the two main quilting feet, this one and the walking, this is the walking foot, and then there's a free motion foot. So I am going to stick my layers together with some basting glue. Now you need to use glue that's compatible with a sewing machine or a needle, because if you don't, it will gum up your machine. So I'm just going to do a quick spritz on the backing fabric over here. You don't have to go mad, just something light. And then I'm going to lay this down on top and smooth it. And then we're grand, we're good to go. Don't need to do any more. We don't need to baste the top down because we're going to be sewing it directly on. So this is, whoop, you can see there's a hold. You can also see that it comes away, so you can reposition it. So we're just making sure the backing fabric is outside of the we're not running out of backing fabric. So I'm just going to start pushing these around. So I've cut thin strips. We should get about a 3/4 of an inch finished strip by this. So I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam down here through all 3 layers with my walking foot, and I'm going to move to the middle. Not exactly sure. So down we go. I'm going to just make my stitch a bit bigger. And do you know what would be very handy? If I threaded the needle first. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. I forgot to thread the needle after filling my bobbin. That's just fantastically clever. So you'll notice I haven't actually cut the fabric to fit, because this is kind of how I started learning to sew first. I did a lot of granny squares. This is getting caught somewhere now, so I need to uncatch it. There we go. Did a lot of granny squares, or log cabins, should I call it? Not granny squares. That's crochet. And I would. Why is this getting stuck? I would just cut as I went. So since I found my scissors, or a scissors, there we go. Now we're going to fold that out. And you can already see that this is, you're getting the nice quilting dent there. I'm going to take the pin, move it just in case. Now then, I'm going to go all the way around. You can use this technique to make cushion covers, to make entire bedspreads if you want. It's a handy little thing to do. And when you finish quilting as you go, you can then change feet and do free motion quilting in the, in the spaces that you've left, all the sections. So for example, you could do free motion all around here. So around we go again. You can pin these in place before you sew, but as you can see, you don't need to. Just make sure you don't sew the backing onto itself. And if you keep all your scraps, you generally find that when you're doing a little bit of random sewing like this, that you will have the colours you need to match whatever you're trying to do, because you have scraps. And last one. The butterfly is being framed very nicely, if I say so myself, by this green. The lime green is in the wings of the butterfly. One thing to remember about this sewing is that all your construction seams will be visible on the back. That's just something to remember. So be as neat as you can. You can get rid of all the... So sometimes your machine will gobble up thread like this, which is what was sticking before. So we'll just try to pull these out and snip them away. Now, so there we go. So that is one round. Oh, itchy nose. What does it mean when you have an itchy nose? Is someone's thinking about you? Or talking about you? So, all the bits of thread. I'm just going to pin these flat so it gets a bit easier. Now, okay. Next, in my random pattern, I'm going to do some white. So again, same as before, I'm just going to whiz around, and you can do any kind of pattern you like with this. Something that you can layer things up like this, and you're not pushing layers and you're having to lift layers to add anything. So you just to plan it out. What am I doing now? Where am I pushing next? And the order in which I'm putting them down. So, and because all the seam ends are being covered by another seam, then it doesn't matter about backstitching or anything. You don't need to lock any seams in because they're all going to be locked in by the next seam, you see. Now I cut triangles here, so you do, unless you're working from a pattern that somebody else has worked out, if you're making it up as you go along, and you need to work out how big your triangles are, and what you need to do is work out where this seam line is going to be measured from here to here, and this is basically half a square. So if you work out where your seam line is going to be, you can say, well, from here to here, that's my square plus my seam allowance. So that's your half square, your seam allowance, or you can go from here to here, and that's half your diagonal. So then you measure your square like that. But this here to here is the corner. That's your square. So you cut your square that size. So many loose threads. You can put it here with your seam allowance, and you should be fine. And we can even test that now with this and see, did I measure it right? Even if you didn't, you can always trim off around the edge. So this is the moment of truth, people. So we're going to go here. Make sure all the edges are lining up. Rah, rah. And oh, hooray. And because I'm going to be putting binding on, these edges match up, that's fine, we'll square it up. And that looks very pretty. So now we shall go on around the edge. God, I am being plagued with loose threads here. So last bit of white to go on. I'm getting great mileage out of this bit of butterfly fabric. So far I've made a bag. So I gotta finish this sewing. There's been made a little quilted zipper bag, and you can see some little bit of quilting there, and I did a little mat for the sake of doing a mat with more quilting, and I made the front of a bag with it. Great mileage. Now I did this one out of turn, but I'm hoping that when I put this down now, it'll cover it up. What we're going to do is we're going to tidy this up a bit. Yeah. See, don't do this. This is exactly what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to go out of turn. Do them in the order. Do exactly what I said to do, not what I did do. So I'm going to give this a couple of stitches first. Put these down the right order. And I'm going to put this down properly over the top. Now, sort out the loose threads later. So this one is going to go with a pin, and you're going to go here. I'm going to pin. I'll sew these two first, and I'll sew the last one down, and then we have our Quilt-as-you-go block ready for tidying, for squaring up. Pin this one down now as well. Now, the last one. Now, then, now just because it'll make it easier to sew later, I'm just going to do a little light just at the edge, all the way around. Huge stitches, not enormous, we just want to base this. Okay, I'm holding the tension. So there we go. Quilt-as-you-go block with fussy cutting.